This dude stunk so bad and his booty was so nasty, they pressure washed him in prison. I'm going back to the 90s, and this is the story. I was in a prison, and they had this one dude who they used to call the Savage Caveman. And he refused to take a bath, and he would live all the time alone in his cell in extended lockdown. So basically, he was in what you call a dungeon or the hole. That's what a lot of, people know it as the hole. So he was in the hole, and he refused to take a bath. He was scared of that water for some reason. They call him caveman. He didn't shave. He didn't brush his teeth. He didn't wash his booty. He ain't never took no toilet paper. The dude was a straight up savage. And when he ate with his bare hands. He wouldn't use no things. So they used to feed him because a lot of times he'd get put on suicide watch because they thought he was crazy. And so when he was on suicide watch, they feed you what they call a loaf. So they take the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner, and they put it in one loaf, and they smash it all together and put it in like a piece of, like a loaf of bread. It's called a loaf. The only thing you don't put in it is the sweets or the cakes or the desserts, but everything else gets mixed together. So if you had eggs and grits, the eggs and grits get tossed with the red beans and the collard greens, and the collard greens might get tossed with the beef stew, and it all get mixed together, one loaf, solidified in the fridge, and they feed it to you. So Savage Caveman would eat it with his bare hands. Well, he was beginning to stink up the entire thing. Dudes didn't like him because nobody on extended lockdown wanted to sell next to him because the dude stunk so bad. He was that rank. I remember one time when I was on extended lockdown on the block that was exactly opposite of him, a dude came from that side where Savage Caveman was, and he said, dude smelled like a sour summer sausage. I said, what he smell like? He said, man, Savage Caveman, that dude smell like a sour summer sausage. In other words, if you ever had summer sausage, that's something you get in prison around Thanksgiving and Christmas. They put it on the canteen list so you can order it, chop it up, and make you a hookup. Well, if it sours and goes bad, it has like this sour smell, and that's what he said the Savage Caveman smelled like. Other dudes said it was so nasty that they couldn't take being on a tier with him, so they would throw their pee and their poo on him. They call you pooing them down, peeing them down, or shatting them down. So they would shat the Savage Caveman down. So he didn't just have his own fecal matter on him, but he had other dudes' fecal matter on him too. I don't know why the Savage Caveman was scared of the shower. I don't know. I know a lot of younger white dudes used to come into the Louisiana prison system, and they would get tried in the shower, so they get scared of that water early on, and they didn't want to take a bath. Listen, I got tested in the shower. I had to handle my business and fight, but I'm gonna take my bath, and that's just the way it's gonna be. I'm gonna get bathed up. I want to be clean. I want to be able to sleep. Plus, you don't want to be all nasty, because if you nasty in prison, other dudes are gonna take that as a sign of aggression, and they are gonna begin fighting you and causing you more problems than what it's worth for you just to get in that water. Well, Savage Caveman was afraid of that water, so he wouldn't get in there. I don't know if he got in that water one day and somebody rocked up on him and somebody tried to play him. I don't know if that happened. It could have happened. I don't know his full story. All I know is it got so bad that the officers had to eventually hog-tie Savage Caveman, get him out of his cell so they could pressure wash his cell. Savage Caveman was so bad, I don't even know how you get fleas in prison, but Savage Caveman had fleas in his beard, in his booty, in his privates. He had fleas, so they had to get him. He had lice, everything. It was nasty. So they had to get him out of his cell. They went in there with that bleach water. They got the whole tier cleared out. They cleaned the whole tier, right? And then they eventually pressure washed Savage Caveman's cell. Well, they couldn't in there. They're like, what do we do? So now the guards came up with a thing where they put him in the shower. Well, the showers in extended lockdown in this prison that I was in is like another cell. So you go into the shower, and then it's like bars, and the bars close in behind you, so you're in the shower. So they put Savage Caveman in there. They took off his shackles and everything, and he was just in there. He was screaming. They said he was screaming like a tortured dog. And when he was screaming, they hit him with that pressure washer, with that bleach water. He was flying back to the wall, kind of like on Rambo. You see Rambo when they hit him with that fire hose? Well, they hit Savage Caveman with that pressure washer. They brought a real pressure washer. Everybody on the walk saw when they was coming down the walk with the pressure washer. They like, man, where they going with that pressure washer? And a lot of dudes been like, man, they gonna clean up Savage Caveman, because Savage Caveman had a reputation. So they cleaned Savage Caveman off with a pressure washer, and on top of that, word was because they had an orderly, a couple inmates, orderlies in there, and they were helping the guards out by handing them. Listen, this wasn't a guards versus inmate type thing or guards versus convict thing. This was about cleanliness and uncleanliness, and everybody, guards and inmates alike, were in agreement that something had to be done with Savage Caveman. Because if you was a guard and you came on your shift and you had to go give this dude his chow and everything, or you had to walk down the thing for count time, well, you had to smell him, and he was stinking up. So everybody agreed that something had to be done with him, so they came together. Well, the orderlies who worked back there said that Savage Caveman, that they had, you know, one of them extended brushes that when you go to wash your car and all the foam comes out the side, they had one of them, and they were scrubbing Savage Caveman. He was in a corner huddled up. Man, them suds were getting him, and so they said they were scrubbing by his booty and everything, and Savage Caveman was finally getting clean. This is a true story about how things in prison can go really crazy, and the people that they got mental issues, you don't know who you're gonna be around. You're gonna get people around people like Savage Caveman. Well, Savage Caveman, you know, after that was over with, you know, they had to repeat this every so many months because he refused to get in that water. This is the story of Savage Caveman, who was a man who refused to get in the shower, and in the process he became very, very stinky, and it caused a lot of problems in the prison. Man, give Dependent a Shank a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Let's get it.